Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening or good night to you today. Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to do another simple landscape. This time I'm not really going to include any buildings or don't plan on it. And so again, we're starting out with plain white paper, ruler, pencil, all prepared to go with an eraser, right? For simplicity's sake, we're going to go ahead and draw this horizon line or the eye level line across the middle of your page. I've got my page turned horizontally, or landscape if you're using a computer a lot. So this is the horizon line, the eye level line. I'm going to put me a vanishing point right here in the middle-ish. Not perfectly in the middle, but close enough. This is the vanishing point. All perspective lines disappear there. So I said a landscape. So today we're going to start out straight out. When I think of land, I think of mountains and trees. So I'm just going to do some little mountains here. Maybe they'll get higher the farther away they go. And when you do one mountain and draw a line in front of it like I did that, or like this case, start behind that line, so to speak, then you kind of create the illusion of distance already, okay? Nothing's perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. So here's our mountains. Here's our land. And I think I said this in another video, but so the horizon line is your mountains will set on top of the earth. And so the like if there's a sunset or something, you're looking at that area. We often think of that as our horizon, but this is the horizon line. So if there were to be another little hill or a mountain or something, maybe if we put one here, now because of where I drew that, it's in front of this horizon line, so it's closer to us. It feels like it, but it's sitting on top of this plane here that we call the earth in this situation. I think I'm going to leave that there. Let's go for a TP. I don't know why I just thought about that. And so this is going to require a little bit of, I'm just going to start here and just draw maybe a really kind of simple TP. And I'm going to put him, if you look at TPs, they're poles, wooden poles that are covered in hide maybe or canvas today, and at the top there's a place for smoke to go out, and I don't know exactly how that's designed, but we're going to say this is our TP. Okay, just use some, maybe there's another pole that's here, you can see it, and so here's our kind of our TP. And there's usually a place to enter and exit the TP. And so we're going to purposely kind of, maybe there's a piece of folded fabric or something that goes back over that. Not going to worry about much detail on that, just a simple outline. And you can research, and I recommend that you do that. Anything you're interested in drawing, research, find examples, reference material. One of the purposes of drawing is to understand. So like when you are drawing something, if you want to understand that object better in order to draw it, then research it, find an example of it, look at it, study it. By increasing your understanding of that, the next time you go to draw it, you may not have to research it. It may already be there in your noggin, so to speak. So here's a TP. Let's do one. I don't know, this TP idea, I really didn't plan on it. It just came to me right then. So I'm going to put one there, not as much. Notice that I'm overlapping. Now this is going to be where the poles are, not much detail there. Make it simple, but maybe it's open, and so we can see that. All right, so automatically by creating this one smaller and this one a little larger, you kind of create the illusion. If we wanted to do another one, if you've done any kind of research on or watched any old movies, usually the TPs would all be set up kind of in a community setting, so to speak. So this is not that far in between. So the mountains back there are really far, far away. I want to talk to you about this perspective line, okay? And this one is kind of a little bit different. in that, no, if this is a TP, and that's TP, right? Let's say that there's a little meandering path. Now, all I'm going to do right now is keep in mind that's the vanishing point. So that path, well, that's where we're looking directly at. That path may come up through here, and I'm going to visually just imagine that path kind of comes up this way, all right? Now, that's not a very wide path, but we got to keep in mind the rules of perspective. As things go away, they get smaller and closer together. So I'm going to, as I come up here, I'm getting wider on this road. I'm just following this, and this is not using a ruler very much at all. It's just, maybe this is a stream instead of a little walking path or a path for horses or whatever. But just by doing that and getting wider as we come out, we've already created the illusion of distance, all right? And space. Now, if I was setting up maybe a TP or something or another, I'd want some shade. And I'm going to just really briefly show you maybe these TPs quite don't feel right. I think I've got them, they might need to be a little more. I think that's the problem, because if you think about that, that TP, yeah, it would go around, but I don't know if I'd be able to see that much around there, so I'm going to maybe, and then this opening, I can move that up a little bit. Notice that I'm just trying to figure this out as you and I are doing this today. Now, if you do any research on TPs, there's some really cool designs and interesting. So here's our path, or our little waterway if we want to make it a waterway. Here's a couple, 3 TPs. And let's see, what else do we want in this? Our little hill back here. Maybe because there's a hill there, and it's, before you get into these big hills, usually there's going to be some little rolling hills. I like turning my pencil to the side and letting the pencil do a lot of the shading and work for me. Just kind of, maybe this hill here actually, as Bob Ross would say, he's got a friend there. And, it's important when you're doing art or producing art. Now, I've erased most of that horizon line through here. And that's all right. I see something else. I'm just going to take this one, put it right through there. Maybe we can pull one right there. Make it a little, this mountain range just keeps building. Let's pull that one up just a hair there. So we're just doing a simple little landscape. Now, if this is a road, something that's going to help it feel grounded and feel level instead of just pulling up through there is to go through here occasionally with some little horizontal lines. And that's something that a lot of times we forget. Even though it might be ruts or a path. And what I like to do also, like this might be grass through here. I'm just very sketchily going along the edge of that. I'm still keeping that path pretty much where it is, but by making that not a perfect line, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to erase some of this line that I put down at the very beginning. I guess you kind of need to do what feels right for you when you're developing a drawing like this. And now, that to me, that could be a river or a path, and if we wanted a river in there or a little stream, we could go ahead and develop that into that. But I'm really just trying to do this as in an introductory kind of video. All right, so I think let's do us another, maybe a TP that sits here, and he's larger. Now, going large is good, but you really need to know your subject matter. And so this one, I don't want to cover up my mountains because I did all that work. I know there might be a pole or two sticking up out of this TP. And maybe one here. By doing all this work, if you're going to have details, you need to know what the details are, not just try to make it up. And that's one of the rules that I always try to instill in my students, is that if you're going to draw something, you need to know, or actually what I say, if you're going into the dark, you need a flashlight. And so if you're drawing something, you don't know what you're drawing, you need to kind of have drawn it before. I'm not going to, this doesn't feel quite right here. Maybe there's maybe even a bigger mountain back there. So now we've kind of created even more of the illusion of space, all right? I said 1 point drawing, so this is a 1 point drawing. We got to keep in mind, okay, let's do a couple little trees here. I mentioned that earlier. Now I have to tell you, I kind of just jerry-rigged these trees in. If I'm thinking about a teepee and there's a tree, let's go with some pine trees maybe. I just kind of start maybe where I want the pine tree. Here's going to be the trunk. And I'll just kind of very roughly, and I don't know what kind of pine this is. You keep in mind that pine trees, and all trees, matter of fact, they're hardly ever symmetrical. I like doing just a kind of little rough sketch at the beginning. And I'm not worried. This is more or less just a sketch, drawing, practice. This one, maybe this fellow lives in this teepee or whatever. He likes that tree as a security, in the sense of feeling like he's connected. Plus, you know, on a hot day, that would offer some shade. Now notice I'm putting this pine tree inside. My pencil's breaking on me. Inside of, good rule to have, is another pencil on hand. Now I'm on the ground here. I'm not really worried about detail. Just penciling this in, sketch. And we can come back to this later. So this tree may be a big fern tree or something that's there, you know. And hardly ever is nature perfect, right? So let's go back here. If I've got a tree here, maybe there's a tree back here. But because this one is closer to us, it's going to be smaller. You know, you have to imagine if there's another tree here, or maybe on top of this hill is a little, because as you go into those mountains, we're just fiddling in a little tiny tree or two here. Never, and as Bob Ross says, you'll hear in my videos, I really like Bob Ross. I reference him quite often. Happy little trees, right? You need a friend. Every tree needs a friend that thinks what he says. And so these, and as they go off into the distance, part of art is an illusion. So you're just trying to fool us. This one's a giant tree that's really far away, and he's pretty nice back there all by himself. Maybe some little trees right through here on top of that little hill. But you kind of get what I'm going for here, okay? Now, this one, this little teepee, he's got a tree out back. And I'm actually he's going to live right there. I'm going to build him from the bottom up. Maybe this tree. Something I'm realizing here, I like this pencil better than I do the other one. It just has a different kind of already used feel about it. I just had sharpened that pencil I broke. And so obviously, this one, I like a nice sharp point most of the time. By creating these little trees, now there might be a tree right here behind on that little mountain. I erase that because maybe a couple little trees here. We're just giving the impression. But you see how we're developing this simple little landscape, and let's go maybe there's been a tree here, and maybe there's a stump or something there. Maybe a tree here, because Native Americans would have had to. Let's do us another tree stump here. They would have had to get their poles from somewhere, and if they're using primitive tools, chances are they would have had to cut it off. It wouldn't be a perfect, nice little chainsaw chopped off. Maybe, okay. But, all right. Something that I really didn't mean this drawing to turn into all of this today, but here we are. Let's go over here. Now, okay. So, this is a one-point perspective landscape drawing. And the reason why it's called a one-point perspective landscape drawing is it has that vanishing point that I took that little creek or road to. In reality, you don't have to have that. But let's say this is a creek. And it don't really look like a creek. But if there's another road or another little area, it's going to go to this vanishing point. So you just got to keep that in mind. Maybe, I'm just going to do a little line here. So maybe, and I'm just going to develop that, maybe that's path 2 or some kind of little worn area. And we're just shading it in. Just remember, as it comes closer to you, it's going to get wider and it's going to get more detailed. That's the other thing about perspective that you got to keep in mind. Things that are far, far away are not as much detail. Now, I don't have a definite shade area here, but if I was going to, and I might just do this real quick, I'm going to say that sunlight, I think I'm probably jumping off the boat here, but the sun's coming from this area. Do not draw a big sunball up there. Oh, that's really, so this side of the mountain will be more shaded. This side of the mountain, shadowed. This side of the mountain, more shadow. This side of the mountain, more shadow. You know, the sun, quite a ways from the earth, and you know, only in the evening time or whatever will you have issues with shadow. Well, I'm just trying to say here that the shadow will be all on the same side of an object, or so this little TP has some shadow here, and maybe the shadow from that stump is there, shadow from the trees. The shadow from this tree would be here, you know, because the sun's still over here. Shadow in the mountain here, shadow, maybe some shadow through there, shadow from the trees. Okay, and then maybe even back here, these big old mountains that are far, far away, there'd be some shadows on those. And that's very gesturally done. But here's our little landscape drawing. If your drawing feels like you need to add something else, then give it a try. Like this one, that very close-up shape kind of controls or balances out this detail over here. So maybe this shape actually would need a little more detail. And because it's closer to us, definitely it would be more in shadow, because the things that are closer to you are more detailed, more dark than the things far away. So that would be true in this path or whatever as you come forward. The shadow, and remember it's going to be on this side. If you want some little twigs or whatever sticking up through there. All right, so date your work always, or sign it and date it. That's a little messy. And actually today's the 28th. 2020, baby. Hey, so thank you for watching. I hope that you have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you next time.